Sumerian kings. Now, these royals were known to have been living for extraordinary long periods of time. And this has shocked archaeologists and the public for many years, even decades. Because as you'll see soon, the historical evidence that explicitly states the lifespan and the years the kings reigned is so long and ununderstandably way out of the reach within the human lifespan. And in this video, we'll be actually looking into the translation of the actual records and be discussing about why the Sumerian kings, because they're like a long stretch of these royals. And at first, they lived for very long periods, just like I said. But at the end, their lifespan was just like our lifespans today. They reigned for 3 years, like because of a disease, 40 years, 50 years. And if you're counting childhood in with that, that might actually be like a lifespan of 60 years, 50 years, 40 years, which is pretty understandable at the time. And this is actually the historical records of the Sumerian kings list. Below is the translation, and this is the source of Wikipedia. And this is the main question we're trying to answer in this video. Why did they live so long and then they live so short? Perhaps these kings weren't the only form of civilizations that lived so long within Sumer. Maybe it was in other parts of the world. And if that's the case, perhaps there were people who lived for such a long period of time before, and that gradually decreased in years, like the years they lived throughout many centuries, which basically just disrupts the entire form of history education we get at schools. And the next slide is actually going to show you the English translation of the record, so watch out. Here is the Sumerian kings list. It's the translation version. And here it says, after the kingship, if you can't see very well, I'll read it out. But here, after the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridug. In Eridug, Alalim became king. He ruled for 28,800 years. Now, take a moment to process that. 28,800 years. Many people just go and say, excuse me? But this is what the records say. Perhaps it was just like a joke or just something like a fictional work, as some skeptics say. But why would they do that? Because this is actually an official document of evidence that were recorded by scholars and nobles across the history of time. And after that was Alajar, who ruled for 36,000 years. 2 kings, they ruled for 64,800 years. And then Eridug fell, and the kingship was replaced with Bat-Tabira. And Emeluana ruled for 43,200 years afterwards, probably the longest I can see from the list. And then Emen-Galana ruled for 28,800 years, about the same as Elu. By the way, this is just an estimation because they're all in zeros, so it's just a round up and round down. And this is not the only thing. There's more. Here, here, here. And here, but the most important part is here. After the flood had swept over and the kingship had descended from heaven, the kingship was in Kik. I don't know how to pronounce that really exactly, but in Kik, Juker became king. He ruled for 1,200 years. You can see the great difference. You see, one king, he ruled for 18,600 years. These kings all ruled until the flood came. These kings all ruled in 5-digit lifespans. But after the flood, this changed to 4 digits and 3 digits. Because here, Nanjiklikma Nanjiklikma ruled for 670 years. Enterana ruled for 420 years. These are three-digit numbers. They're three-digit numbers. And the dramatic decrease from the flood tells you that it might have resulted in the flood. It might have resulted in some natural disaster that drastically increased and plunged the lifespans and reigning years of these kings. And so what was that? And by the end of the list, you can very well see that these kings ruled for 125 years, and 21 kings ruled for 125 years. Now that is basically like about 5 years each, or 7 years, 6 to 7 years for each king. Now that is just it's like a totally wide difference between 28,800 years to 7 years. And these were the first few kings, of course, made a list, who reigned. And these were the last few kings who reigned. And there's 4 years for Irapika, Erdokuga reigned for 4 years, Suan ruled for 11 years, and Damigiliku ruled for 23 years. Now, of course, these might turn on a darker side where all of it's just a prank. But then again, this is inherent historical evidence. And you can get no such thing as a prank in historical evidence. So seeing that, there might have been some kind of intervention that changed the course of history. And as we can see in the document, I think the biggest reason for this is a so-called flood. And this flood is not only mentioned in the Sumerian records, it's also, the flood did it. It's also mentioned in other kind of texts, other sacred texts like the Bible, Greek mythology, the Quran, or Quran, I don't know how to really pronounce it, but the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud of Judaism, and 200 other sacred texts, and according to the internet. And all of these texts mention the flood, which means basically because religion and religious texts were from actual people who, well, mostly were from actual people who actually experienced the stories that are actually in the text. We can actually verify that the flood actually came in the course of history. And this is actually happening soon. I mean, can't you see? Because global warming, climate change, sea levels rising, this is all the signs of a flood. And if the flood would happen before, surely this is all because of a natural cause. Because these texts were made at different times, which might mean that the flood repeated itself multiple times before, and it's happening soon again. And it might have meant the end of civilization or the reduction of human lifespans for the Sumerians. So yeah, that still remains a mystery to us today. All those the Sumerians, even the questioning of how the Sumerians lived for so long. Perhaps they shared a link with creatures outside Earth. We do not know till today. And all of it remains a mystery. Perhaps a flood may come soon. Perhaps it's a natural cause. Perhaps it's not artificial and it's not from humans. Maybe it's turned into a more quicker process because of human interactions. But perhaps it's just basically through natural existence, through nature. And all of this remains in a very foggy enigma, and we shall have to see and wait to find out. Just like how Albert Einstein said. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, put some comments down in the comment section, all the YouTubing kind of things. And also check out our website at tweetlikeaj.weebly.com.